Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ve bihi nesta'in. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Ve salatu ve selamu ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecma'in.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. The 22nd word. This word consists of two stations. First station.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ve yadribullahul emsâle linnâsi leallehum yetezekkerûn. Ve tilkel emsâlu nadribuha linnâsi leallehum yetefekkerûn.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. So Allah sets forth parables for men, so that they may bear them in mind. Such are the similitudes which we propound to men, that they may reflect. One time, two men were washing in a pool. Under some extraordinary influence, they lost their senses, and when they opened their eyes, they saw that it had transported them to a strange land. It was such that, with its perfect order, it was like a country, or rather a town, or a palace. They looked around themselves in complete bewilderment. If it was looked at in one way, a vast world was apparent. If in another, a well-ordered country. And if in another, a fine town. And if it was looked at in still another way, it was a palace which comprised a truly magnificent world. Travelling around this strange world, they observed it and saw that creatures of one sort were speaking in a fashion, but they did not understand their language. Nevertheless, it was understood from their signs that they were performing important works and duties. One of the two men said to his friend, "This strange world must have someone to regulate it, and this orderly country must have a lord, and this fine town an owner, and this finely made palace a master builder. We must try to know him, for it is understood that the one who brought us here was he. If we do not recognize him, who will help us? What can we await from these impotent creatures whose language we do not know, and who do not heed us? Moreover, surely one who makes a vast world in the form of a country, town and palace, and fills it from top to bottom with wonderful things, and embellishes it with every sort of adornment, and decks it out with instructive miracles, wants something from us, and from those that come here. We must get to know him and find out what he wants." The other man said, "I do not believe it, that there is such a person as the one you speak of, and that he governs this whole world on his own." His friend replied to him, "If we do not recognize him and remain indifferent towards him, there is no advantage in it at all, and if it is harmful, its harm will be immense. Whereas, if we try to recognize him, there is little hardship involved, and if there is benefit, it will be great. Therefore, it is in no way sensible to remain indifferent towards him." The foolish man said, "I consider all my ease and enjoyment to lie in not thinking of him. Also, I'm not going to bother with things that make no sense to me. Also, these things are the confused objects of chance. They are happening by themselves. What is it to me?" His intelligent friend replied, "This obstinacy of yours will push me and a lot of others into disaster. It sometimes happens that a whole country is laid waste because of one ill-mannered person." So the foolish man turned to him and said, "Either prove to me decisively that this large country has a single lord and single maker, or leave me alone." His friend replied, "Your obstinacy has reached the degree of lunacy, and you will be the cause of some disaster being visited on us. So I shall show you 12 proofs demonstrating that this world, which is like a palace, and a country, which is like town, has a single maker, and that it is only He who runs and administers everything. He is completely free of all deficiency. This Maker, who does not appear to us, sees us and everything, and hears our words. All His works are miracles and marvels. All these creatures whom we see, but whose tongues we do not understand, are His officials. First proof. Come and look carefully at everything around you. A hidden hand is working within all these works. For something which has not even 1 ounce of strength, something as small as a seed, is raising a load thousands of pounds. Footnote 3. This alludes to seeds which bear trees on their heads. And something that does not have even a particle of consciousness is performing extremely wise and purposeful works. Footnote 4. This indicates delicate plants like the grapevine, which themselves cannot climb or bear the weight of fruits, so throwing their delicate arms around other plants or trees and winding themselves around them, they load themselves onto them. That means they are not working by themselves, but that a hidden possessor of power is causing them to work. If they were independent, it would necessitate all the works which we see everywhere in this land being miracles, and everything to be a wonder-working marvel, and that is nonsense. Second proof. Come, look carefully at the things which adorn all these plains, fields, and dwellings. There are marks on each telling of that hidden one. Simply, each gives news of him like a seal or stamp. Look in front of your eyes. What does he make from 1 ounce of cotton? Footnote 5. This indicates a seed, for example, a poppy seed, like an atom, the kernel of an apricot stone, and a tiny melon seed, produce the treasury of mercy, woven leaves finer than broadcloth, flowers whiter than linen, and fruits sweeter than sugar, and more delicate and delicious than sweets and conserves, and they offer them to us. See how many rolls of cloth, fine linen, and flowered material have come out of it. See how many sugared delights and round sweets are being made. If thousands of people like us were to clothe themselves in them and eat them, they would still be sufficient. And look, he has taken a handful of iron, water, earth, coal, copper, silver, and gold, and made some flesh out of them. Footnote 6. This indicates the creation of animal bodies from the elements, and living creatures from sperm. Look at that and see, O foolish one, these works are particular to such a one that all this land, together with all its parts, is under his miraculous power, and is submissive to his every wish. Third proof. Come, look at these mobile works of art. Footnote 7. This alludes to animals and humans. For since animals are tiny indexes of the world, and man is a miniature sample of the universe, whatever there is in the world, a sample of it is in man. Each has been fashioned in such a way that it is simply a miniature sample of the huge palace. Whatever there is in the palace, it is found in these tiny mobile machines. Is it at all possible that someone other than the palace's maker could come and include the wondrous palace in a tiny machine? Also, is it at all possible that although he has included a whole world in a machine the size of a box, there could be anything in it that was purposeless or could be attributed to chance? That means that however many skillfully fashioned machines you can see, each is like a seal of their hidden one. Rather, each is like a herald or proclamation. Through their tongues of disposition, they are saying, "We are the art of one who can make this entire world of ours as easily and as simply as he created us." Fourth proof. O my stubborn friend, come, I shall show you something even stranger. Look, all these works and things in this land have changed and are changing. They do not stop in any one state. Note carefully that each of these lifeless bodies and unfeeling boxes has taken on the form of being absolutely dominant. Quite simply, It is as though each rules all the others. Look at this machine next to us. Footnote 8. The machine indicates fruit-bearing trees, for they bear on their slender branches hundreds of workbenches and factories, and weave, adorn, and cook wonderful leaves, flowers and fruits, and stretch them out for us. And majestic trees like the pine and the cedar even set up their workbenches on dry rock and work. It is as though issuing commands, all the necessities and substances necessary for its adornment and functioning come hastening to it from distant places. Look over there, that lifeless body is as though beckoning. It makes the largest body serve it and work in its own workplace. Footnote 9. This alludes to grains, seeds, and eggs of flies. For example, a fly leaves its eggs on the leaves of the elm. Suddenly, a huge tree turns its leaves into a mother's womb and cradle for eggs, and into a store full of food like honey. Simply, in that way the tree, which is not fruit-producing, produces fruit-bearing spirits. Make further analogies in the same way. Simply, everything subjugates to itself all the beings in this world. If you do not accept the existence of that hidden one, you have to attribute all his skills, arts and perfections in the stones, earth, animals, and creatures resembling man everywhere in this land, to things themselves. In place of a single, wonder-working being, which your mind deems unlikely, you have to accept millions like him, who are both opposed to one another and similar, and one within the other, so they do not cause confusion everywhere, and the order be spoiled. Whereas, if two fingers meddle in a country, they cause confusion. For if there are two headmen in a village, or two governors in a town, or two kings in a country, the result is chaos. So what about an infinite, absolute ruler?
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. Fifth proof. O my sceptical friend, come, look carefully at the inscriptions of this vast palace. Look at all the adornments of the town. See the ordering of this whole land, and reflect on all the works of art in this world. See, if these inscriptions are not worked by the pen of one hidden, who possesses infinite miracles and skills, and are attributed to unconscious causes, to blind chance and deaf nature, then every stone and every plant in this land has to be an inscriber, so wondrous it can write 1,000 books in every letter, and include millions of works of art in a single inscription. Because look at the inscription on these stones. Footnote 10. This alludes to man, the fruit of the tree of creation, and to the fruit which bears its tree's program and index. For whatever the pen of power has written in the great book of the universe, it has written its summary in man's nature. And whatever the pen of divine determining has written in a tree the size of a mountain, it has also included it in its fruit the size of a fingernail. In each are the inscriptions of all the palace, and the laws ordering all the town, and the programs for organizing the whole country. That means that it is as wonderful to make these inscriptions as to make the whole country, in which case all the inscriptions, all the works of art, are proclamations of that hidden one, and seals of his. Since a letter cannot exist without showing the one who wrote it, and an artistic inscription cannot exist without making known its inscriber. How is it that an inscriber who writes a huge book in a single letter and inscribes 1,000 inscriptions in a single inscription should not be known through his writing and through his inscribing? Sixth proof. Come, let us go out onto this broad plain. Footnote 11. This indicates the face of the earth in the spring and summer. For the groups of hundreds of thousands of different creatures are created one within the other and written there. They are changed without fault or error and with perfect order. Thousands of tables of the most merciful one are laid out, then removed and replaced by fresh ones. All the trees as though bare trays. All the gardens are like cauldrons. On it is a high mountain, whose summit we shall climb to so that we can see all the surrounding country. We shall take with us a good pair of binoculars, which will bring everything close. For strange things are happening in this strange land. Every hour things are taking place that we could not imagine. Look, these mountains, plains and towns are suddenly changing, and how? In such a way that millions of things are being changed in a most regulated and orderly fashion, one within the other. Truly wondrous transformations are being wrought, just as though millions of various cloths are being woven, one within the other. Look, these flowery things, which we know and are familiar with, are disappearing, and others have come in their place in orderly fashion, which resemble them in nature, but are different in form. It is quite simply as though this plain and the mountains are each a page, and within them are being written hundreds of thousands of different books, and they are being written faultlessly and without defect. It is impossible 100 times over that these matters should have come about on their own. Yes, for these works, which are skillfully and carefully fashioned to an infinite degree, to have occurred on their own, is impossible 1,000 times over. For rather than themselves, they show the artist who fashioned them. Moreover, the one who did this displays such miracles that nothing at all could be difficult for him. It is as easy for him to write 1,000 books as to write one book. Look all around you. He both puts everything in its proper place with perfect wisdom and munificently showers the favours on everyone of which they are worthy. And he draws back and opens general veils and doors so bountifully that everyone desires are satisfied. And he sets up tables so generously that a feast of bounties is given to all the people and animals of this land. Each group and individual is given one particular and suitable for it even. So is there anything more impossible in the world than that there should be anything attributable to chance in these matters that we see? Or that among these matters that we see there is anything purposeless or vain? Or that many hands should be interfering in them? Or that their maker should not be capable of everything? Or that everything should not be subjugated to him? And so, my friend, find a pretext in the face of these, if you can. Seventh proof. Come, my friend. Now we shall leave these particular matters and turn our attention to our mutual positions of the parts of this wondrous world in the form of a palace. Look, universal works are being carried out and general revolutions are occurring in this world with such order that all the rocks, earth, trees, and everything in this palace observe the universal systems of the world and conform to them as if each was acting with will. Things which are distant hasten to assist one another. Now look, a strange caravan has appeared, coming from the unseen. Footnote 12. These are the caravans of plants and trees which bear the sustenance of all the animals. The mounts in it resemble trees, plants and mountains. Each bears a tray of provisions on its head. And look, they are bringing the provisions for the various animals awaiting them on this side. And see the mighty electric lamp. In that dome both furnishes them with light and cooks all their food so well that the foods to be cooked are each attached to a string by an unseen hand and held up before it. Footnote. The mighty electric lamp indicates the sun, and the string and the food attached to it are the slender branches of trees and their delicious fruits. And on this side, see these wretched, weak, powerless little animals, how before their heads are attached 2 small pumps full of delicate sustenance, like 2 springs. It is enough for these powerless creatures to only press their mouths against them. Footnote, and the 2 small pumps allude to the breasts of mothers. In short, just as all the things throughout the world look to one another, so they help one another, and just as they see one another, so they cooperate with one another, and just as they perfect each other's works, so too they support one another, standing shoulder to shoulder, they work together. Make analogies with this for everything. They are uncountable. Thus, all these things demonstrate as decisively as 2 + 2 = 4 that everything is subjugated to the maker of this wondrous palace. That is, to the owner of this strange world. Everything is like a soldier under his command. Everything turns through his strength. Everything acts through his command. Everything is set in order through his wisdom. Everything helps the others through his munificence. Everything hastens to the assistance of the others through his compassion. That is, they are made to hasten to it. Now, my friend, say something in the face of this if you can. 8th proof. Come, my foolish friend, who thinks himself reasonable like my soul. You do not want to recognize the owner of this magnificent palace, but everything shows him, points to him, testifies to him. How can you deny the testimony of all these things? You have therefore to deny the palace as well, and say, there is no world, no country. Deny yourself too, and disappear. Or else, come to your senses and listen to me. Now look, there are uniform elements and minerals inside the palace and encompassing land. Footnote 16. As for the elements and minerals, these indicate the elements of air, water, light, and earth, which have numerous well-ordered duties. They hasten to the assistance of all needy beings with dominical leave, enter everywhere and bring help at the divine command, and raise all the things necessary for life and suckle living creatures, and are the source of the weaving and inscribing of the divine artifacts and their progenitors and cradles. Simply, everything appearing in the country is made of those elements. That means whoever these things belong to, everything made of them is also his. Whoever the field belongs to, the crops are his too. And whoever the sea belongs to, the things within it are also his. And look, these textiles, these decorated woven materials are being made out of a single substance. It is self-evidently the same person who brings the substance, prepares it, and makes it into string. For such a work would not permit the participation of others, in which case all the woven, skillfully made things are particular to him. And look, every sort of these woven, manufactured goods is found in every part of the country. They have spread with all their fellows and are being made and woven together, and one within the other, in the same way, at the same instant. That means they are the work of the same person and the same act through a single command. Otherwise, their correspondence and conformity at the same instant, in the same fashion, of the same sort, would be impossible. In which case, each of these skillfully fashioned things is like a proclamation of that hidden one which points to him. As if each sort of flowered material, each ingenious machine, each sweet mouthful is a stamp of that miracle-displaying person, a stamp of his, a mark, a decoration. Each says, through the tongue of disposition, whosever work of art I am. The boxes and shops where I am found are also his property. Each inscription says, whoever wove me also wove the roll of cloth of which I am a part. Every sweet mouthful says, whoever makes me and cooks me, the cauldron in which I am, is also his. And every machine says, whoever made me also makes all those like me who have spread throughout the land, and the one who raises us in every part of it is also he. That means he is also the country's owner, in which case, whoever the owner of all this country and palace is, he may be our owner too. For example, in order to be the true owner of a single cartridge belt, or even a button belonging to the government, one also has to own all the factories in which they are made. If a bragging irregular soldier claims otherwise, he will be told they are government property, and they will be taken from him and he will be punished. In short, just as the elements in this country all surround and encompass it, and their own owner can only be one who owns the whole country, in the same way, since the works of art that are spread throughout it resemble one another and display a single stamp, they show that they are the art of a single person who governs everything. And so, my friend, there is a sign of oneness, a stamp of unity in this country, that is, this magnificent palace. For while being the same, certain things are all-encompassing, and while being numerous, some display a unity or similarity, since they resemble one another and are found everywhere. As for unity, it shows one of unity. That means that its maker, owner, lord and fashioner has to be one and the same. In addition, look carefully at this. From behind the veil of the unseen, a thickish string has appeared. Footnote 17. The thickish string alludes to fruit-bearing trees, the thousands of strings to their branches, and the diamonds, decorations, favours and gifts to the varieties of blossoms and fruits. Now look, thousands of strings have hung down from it, and see the tips of the strings, a diamond, a decoration, a favour. A gift has been attached to each. Suitable presents are being given to everyone. Do you know what a lunatic action it is not to recognise or thank the one who stretches out from behind the strange veil of the unseen such wondrous favours and gifts? Because if you do not recognise him, you will be compelled to say, "These strings are making the diamonds and other gifts on their tips themselves and offering them." Then you have to attribute to each string the meaning of a king, whereas, before our eyes, an unseen hand is making the strings too, and attaching the gifts to them. That means everything in this palace points to that miracle displaying one rather than to themselves. If you do not recognise him through denying them, you fall 100 times lower than an animal.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. Ninth proof. Come, my unreasoning friend, you do not recognise this palace's owner, and you do not want to recognise him because you deem his existence unlikely. You deviate into denial because you cannot comprehend with your narrow brain his wondrous arts and acts. Whereas the true unlikelihood, real difficulties, hardships, and awesome trouble lie in not recognising him. For if we recognise him, this whole palace, this world, becomes as easy, as trouble-free as a single thing. It becomes the means to the abundance and plenty around us. If we do not recognise him, and he does not exist, then everything becomes as difficult as this whole palace, because everything is as skillfully made as the palace. Then neither the abundance nor the plenty would remain. Indeed, not one of these things which we see would pass to anyone's hand, let alone ours. Look at just the jar of conserve attached to this string. Footnote 18. The jar of conserve indicates the gifts of divine mercy like melons, watermelons, pomegranates and coconuts, which are the conserves of divine power and like tins of milk. If it had not emerged from his hidden miracle-displaying kitchen, we could not have bought it for 100 liras, although we buy it now for 40 para. Footnote 19. 1 para is 1/40th of a kurush. 100 kurush equals 1 lira. Yes, all unlikelihood, difficulty, trouble, arduousness, indeed impossibility, lies in not recognizing him. For a tree is given life from one root, through one law, in one centre, and the formation of thousands of fruits is as easy as one fruit. But if the fruits were tied to different centres and roots, and different laws, each fruit would be as difficult to produce as the tree. And if the equipping of an entire army is in one centre, although through one law and from one factory, as regards quantity, it is as easy as equipping a single soldier. While if each soldier is equipped from all different places, then to equip one soldier, there would have to be as many factories as for the entire army. Just like these two examples, if in this well-ordered palace, this fine town, this advanced country, this magnificent world, the creation of all things is attributed to a single being, it becomes so easy, so light, it is the reason for the infinite abundance, availability and munificence we see. Otherwise, everything would become so expensive, so difficult, that if the whole world was given to someone, they could not obtain them. 10th proof. Come, my friend, who has come a little to his senses. We have been here 15 days now. Footnote 20. 15 days indicates the age of 15, the age of discretion. If we do not know the regulations of this world, and do not recognize its king, we shall deserve punishment. We have no excuse, because for 15 days, as though given a respite, they do not interfere with us. Of course, we have not just been left to our own devices. We cannot wander around among these delicate, well-balanced, subtle, skillfully made and instructive creatures like an animal and spoil them. They would not permit us to harm them. The penalties of this country's august king are bound to be awesome. You can understand how powerful and majestic he is from the way he orders this huge world as though it was a palace, and makes it revolve like a machine. He administers this large country like a house, missing nothing. See, like filling a container and emptying it, he continuously fills this palace, this country, this town, with perfect order, and empties it with perfect wisdom. Like spreading out a table, then clearing it away, varieties of foods are brought in turn and given to eat in the form of a great variety of tables, being laid out by an unseen hand in every part of this vast country, and then being cleared away. Footnote. The tables indicate the face of the earth in summer, during which hundreds of tables, the most merciful, emerge fresh and different from the kitchens of mercy. Every garden is a cauldron, every tree a tray-bearer. The unseen hand clears away one, then brings another in its place. You see this too, and if you use your head, you will understand that within that awesome majesty is an infinitely munificent liberality. And see, just as all these things testify to that unseen one's sovereignty and unity, so too these revolutions and changes which pass on in succession like caravans, and are opened and closed from behind that true veil, testify to his continuance and permanence. For the causes of things disappear along with them, whereas the things which we attribute to them, which follow on after them, are repeated. That means those works are not theirs, but the works of one who does not perish. It is understood from the bubbles on the surface of a river disappearing and the bubbles which succeed them sparkling in the same way, that what makes them sparkle is a constant and elevated possessor of light. Similarly, the speedy changing of things and the things that follow on after them assuming the same colours shows that they are the manifestations, inscriptions, mirrors and works of art of one who is perpetual, undying and single. 11th proof. Come, my friend, now I shall show you a decisive proof as powerful as the 10 previous ones. We shall board a boat and sail to a peninsula far away, Footnote 22. The ship indicates history and the peninsula, the era of bliss or age of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Through casting off the dress of this low civilization on its dark shore, entering the seas of time, boarding the ship of history and alighting at the Arabian Peninsula and era of bliss, and visiting the glory of the world, peace and blessings be upon him, at his duties. We know that he is a proof of divine unity, so brilliant that he illuminates the entire globe, and the two faces of the past and the future, and disperses the darkness of unbelief and misguidance. For the key to this riddle-filled world will be there. Moreover, everyone is looking to that peninsula and waiting something from it. They are receiving orders from there. See, we are going there. Now we have arrived and have alighted on the peninsula. There is a vast gathering, a great concourse, as though all the important people of the country have gathered there. Look carefully, this great community has a leader. Come, we shall draw closer. We must become acquainted with him. Look, what brilliant decorations he has, more than 1,000 of them. Footnote 23. The 1,000 decorations are the miracles of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, which according to those who have investigated them, reach nearly 1,000. How powerfully he speaks. How pleasant is his conversation. In these 2 weeks I have learnt a little of what he says. You learn them from me. See, he is speaking of this country's miracle-displaying king. He is saying that the glorious king sent him to us, and he is displaying such wonders that they leave no doubt that he is a special envoy. Look carefully. It is not only the creatures on this peninsula that are listening to what he says. He is making the whole country hear in wondrous fashion. For near and far, everyone is trying to hear the speech here. It is not only humans that are listening, animals are listening too. Look, even the mountains are listening to the commands he brought, so that they are stirring in their places, and the trees too move to the place that he indicates. He brings forth water from wherever he wishes. He even makes his fingers like a spring of Kevser, and gives to drink from them. Look at his sign, an important lamp in the dome of this palace splits into 2. Footnote 24. The important lamp is the moon, which split into 2 halves at his indication. That is, as Maulana Jami said, with the pen of his finger, that unlettered one who knew no writing wrote an alif on the page of the skies and made 140 250s. That is, before it split, the moon resembled Min, the value of which is 40, and after splitting it became 2 crescents and resembled 2 noons, the value of which is 50. That means this country, together with all its beings, recognizes that he is an official and envoy. They heed and obey him, as though knowing that he is the most eminent and true interpreter of an unseen displayer of miracles, and the herald of his dominicality, the discloser of his talisman, and a trustworthy envoy delivering his commands. All those with intelligence around him declare, yes, that is right, about everything he says, and affirm it. Indeed, through submitting to his signs and commands, the mountains and trees in this country, and the huge light that illuminates it, say, yes, yes, everything you say is true. Footnote 25. The huge light is the sun, which reappeared from the east on the earth's revolving backwards. Imam Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, who had been unable to perform the prayers since the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was sleeping in his arms, due to this miracle was able to perform the prayers on time. My foolish friend, could there be any contradiction or deception concerning the miracle-displaying king, about whom this most luminous, magnificent and serious being, who bears 1,000 decorations, particular to the king's own treasury, is speaking with all his strength, confirmed by all the country's notables, and concerning the king's attributes which he mentions, and the commands which he relays? If there is anything contrary to the truth in these things, it will be necessary to deny this palace, these lamps, this community, both their reality and their existence. If you can, raise any objections against these, but you will see that they will be smashed by the power of the proof and flung back at you. 12th proof. Come, my brother, who has come to his senses a little. I shall show you a further proof of the strength of all the 11 preceding proofs. See this luminous decree, which descends from above and which everyone looks on in rapt attention out of either wonder or veneration. Footnote 26. The luminous decree refers to the Qur'an and the seal on it, to its miraculousness. The one with 1,000 decorations has stopped by it and is explaining its meaning to everyone. The styles of the decree so shine they attract everyone's appreciative gaze, and it speaks of matters so important and serious that everyone is compelled to give ear to them. For it describes all the qualities, acts, commands, and attributes of the one who governs this whole land, who made this palace and exhibits these wonders. Just as there is a mighty stamp on the decree as a whole, look, there is an inimitable seal on every line and every sentence, and moreover, the meanings, truths, commands, and instances of wisdom it states are seen to be in a style particular to him, thus bearing the meaning of a stamp. In short, the Supreme Decree shows the Supreme Being as clearly as the sun, so that anyone who is not blind can see it. My friend, if you have come to your senses, this is enough for now. If you have something to say, say it. In reply, the obstinate man said, I can only say this in the face of these proofs of yours. All praise be to Allah, for I have come to believe, and I believe in a way bright as the sun and clear as daylight, that this country has a single king of perfection, this world a single glorious owner, this palace a single beauteous maker. May Allah be pleased with you, for you have saved me from my former obstinacy and foolishness. Each of the proofs you showed was sufficient to demonstrate the truth. But because with each successive proof, clearer, pleasanter, more agreeable, more luminous, finer levels of knowledge, veils in acquaintanceship, and windows of love were opened and revealed, I waited and listened. The story in the form of a comparison indicating the mighty truth of divine unity and belief in Allah has reached its conclusion. Through the grace of the Most Merciful, the effulgence of the Qur'an, and light of belief, we shall now set out 12 flashes and an introduction from the Son of true divine unity, corresponding to the 12 proofs in the story.
وَمِنَ اللَّهِ التَّوْفِيقُ وَالْهِدَايَةُ.
Success and guidance are from Allah alone.
سُبْحَانَكَ لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. The second station of the 22nd word. Introduction.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahu khaliqu kulli şeyin ve huve ala kulli şeyin vekil. Lehu makalidus semavati vel ard. Fesubhanellezi biyedihi melekutu kulli şeyin ve ileyhi turca'un. Ve in min şeyin illa indena khazainuhu ve ma nunazziluhu illa bi kaderin ma'lum. Ma min dabbetin illa huve ahizun bi nasiyetiha. İnne Rabbi ala sıratın mustaqim.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. Allah is the Creator of all things, and He is the Guardian and Disposer of all affairs. To Him belong the keys of the heavens and the earth. So glory to Him, in whose hands is the sovereignty of all things, and to him will you all be brought back. And there is not a thing but its sources and treasures inexhaustible are with us, but we only send down thereof in due and ascertainable measures. There is not a moving creature, but he has grasp of its forelock. Verily, it is my sustainer that is on a straight path. In my treatise entitled Qatra, which is about belief in Allah, the principal pole of the pillars of belief, I explained, in brief, the evidence to Almighty Allah's existence and unity given by all beings through 55 tongues. Also in the treatise Nokta, I mentioned 4 universal proofs out of the evidences of Almighty Allah's existence and unity, each of which has the strength of 1,000 proofs. Moreover, since I have discussed in around 12 of my Arabic treatises hundreds of decisive proofs demonstrating Almighty Allah's necessary existence and unity, I shall be content with those and not now undertake any profound investigations. Only I shall try to explain in this 22nd word 12 flashes from the sun of belief in Allah, which I have written briefly in other places in the Risale-i. First flash. The affirmation of divine unity is of 2 sorts. For example, if the goods of a rich man arrive in a market or town, there are 2 ways in which one may know they are his. One is briefly and simply, as with ordinary people, which is, no one apart from him is capable of owning this vast amount of goods. But when under the supervision of a common man, such as that, much of it may be stolen. Many others may claim ownership of parts of it. The second sort is this: through reading his writing on every packet, recognizing his signature on every roll, and seeing his seal on every bill, the man declares, everything belongs to that person. Here, everything in effect shows the important man. Similarly, the affirmation of divine unity is of 2 sorts. One is the superficial and common affirmation of divine unity, which says, Almighty Allah is one, He has no partner or like. This universe is His. The second is the true affirmation of divine unity, which, through seeing on everything the stamp of His power, the seal of His dominicality, and the inscriptions of His pen, is to open a window directly onto His light from everything, and to confirm and believe with almost the certainty of seeing it, that everything emerges from the hand of His power, and that in no way has He any partner or assistant in His Godhead, or in His dominicality, or in His sovereignty, and thus to attain to a sort of perpetual awareness of the divine presence. In this word, we shall mention rays demonstrating this pure and elevated true affirmation of divine unity. A reminder within the first point. O heedless worshipper of causes! Causes are a veil for divine dignity, and grandeur require them to be thus. But that which acts and performs matters is the power of the eternally besought one. For divine unity and glory require it to be thus, and necessitate their independence. The officials of the pre-eternal monarch are not executives of the sovereignty of dominicality. They are the heralds of his sovereignty, and the observers and superintendents of his dominicality. Their purpose is to make known the dignity of power and majesty of dominicality, so that power should not be seen to be associated with base and lowly matters. Not like a human king, tainted by impotence and indigence, who therefore takes officials as partners. That is to say, causes have been placed so that the dignity of power may be preserved in the superficial view of the mind. For like the 2 faces of a mirror, everything has an outer face that looks to this manifest world, which resembles the mirror's coloured face and may reflect various colours and states, and an inner face which looks to its maker, which resembles the mirror's shining face. and the outer face, which looks to the manifest world, may be states incompatible with the dignity and perfection of the eternally besought one's power. So causes have been put to be both the source and the means of those states. But in the inner face, that of reality, which looks to their Creator, everything is transparent and beautiful. It is fitting that power should itself be associated with it. It is not incompatible with its dignity. Therefore, causes are purely apparent, and in the inner face of things, and in reality, have no true effect. A further instance of wisdom in apparent causes is this. Causes have been put so that unjust complaints and baseless objections should be directed at them, and not at the absolutely just one. For the faults arise from them, from their incapacity and lack of ability. A comparison is narrated which is in the form of a subtle example illustrating this mystery. The angel, Azrael, peace be upon him, said to Almighty Allah, "Your servants will complain about me while I am carrying out my duty of taking possession of the spirits of the dying. They will be resentful towards me." So Almighty Allah said to him through the tongue of wisdom, "I shall leave the veil of disasters and illnesses between you and my servants, so that the complaints will be directed at them, and they will not be indignant at you." So see, illnesses are a veil. What are imagined to be the bad things at the appointed hour are attributed to them, and what are in reality the good things in the spirits of the dying being seized are attributed to Azrael, peace be upon him, and his duty. Azrael is also a veil. He is a supervisor of that duty, and a veil to divine power, so that certain conditions, when spirits are seized, which are apparently unkind and are inappropriate to the perfection of mercy, will be attributed to him. Yes, dignity and grandeur demand that causes are a veil to the hand of power in the view of the mind, while divine unity and glory demand that causes withdraw their hands and have no true effect. Second flash. Look at this garden of the universe, this orchard of the earth. Look carefully at the beautiful face of the heavens gilded with stars. You will see that on all the artifacts spread out and scattered over them are stamps particular to the Creator of all things. And on all creatures are seals special to the Maker of all things. And at all the levels of being written on the pages of night and day, and summer and winter, all published by the pen of power, are inimitable, illustrious signatures of an all-glorious Maker, and all beauty's Creator. We shall now mention a few of those stamps, seals, and signatures, by way of example. For example, of the innumerable stamps, consider this one out of many placed on life. He makes everything out of one thing, and makes one thing out of everything. For he makes the innumerable members and systems of animals out of a fluid, and also out of a simple water which is drunk. Thus, to make one thing, everything is surely the work of one possessing absolute power, and one who, with perfect order, transforms into a particular body numerous substances from the innumerable foods eaten, whether plant or animal, and weaves from them a particular skin, and makes from them simple members, is surely one powerful over all things, and one knowing of all things. Indeed, the Creator of life and death administers life through his wisdom in this workshop of the world, through a law issuing from his command, so miraculous that only one who holds the whole universe in the grasp of his power could apply that law and enforce it. Thus, if your mind is not extinguished and your heart not blind, you will understand that what makes one thing with perfect ease and order, and makes everything one thing skillfully, with perfect balance and order, is a stamp particular to the Maker of everything, and a seal special to the Creator of all things. For example, if you see that together with weaving 100 rolls of broadcloth, and various other cloths like silk or cambric from a single ounce of cotton, a wonder worker makes many foods from it, like helva and pastries. Then you see that he takes a handful of iron and stone, honey and butter, water and earth, and makes some fine gold. You would certainly pronounce him to possess unique art, for all the elements of the earth are subjugated to his command, and all the substances of the earth subject to his word. Indeed, the manifestation of power and wisdom in life is 1,000 times more wondrous than this example. Thus, one stamp on life out of many.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. Third flash. Look at the living creatures revolving in this flowing universe, in these flowing beings. You will see that on each are many seals placed by the ever-living and self-subsistent one. One of them is this. A living creature, for example a human being, is quite simply a miniature sample of the universe, a fruit of the tree of creation, and a seed of the world. For he comprises samples of most of the realms of beings in the world. It is as if the animate being is a drop filtered from the universe in an extremely fine measure. So to create it and be its sustainer, one has to hold the whole universe in the grasp of one's power. Thus, if your mind is not submerged in delusions, you will understand that to make a word of power, for example, a honeybee, a minute index of most things, and to write in one page, for example, in man, most of the matters in this book of the universe, and to include in one point, for example, in a tiny fig seed, the program of the mighty fig tree, and to display in a single letter, for example, in the human heart, the works of all the divine names manifested in the pages of the macrocosm which encompass it, and to make written in the human faculty of memory, which is situated in a place the size of a lentil, writings enough to fill a library, and to include in that tiny faculty a detailed index of all events in the cosmos. To do all things is most certainly a stamp particular to the Creator of all things, the glorious sustainer of the universe. Thus, if one seal out of many dominical seals on living beings displays its light and makes red its signs thus, if you were able to see and consider all those seals at once, would you not declare,
سبحان من اختفى بشدة ظهوره.
Glory be to him who is concealed in the intensity of his manifestation. Fourth flash. Look carefully at the multicoloured, multifarious beings swimming in the seas of the heavens and scattered over the face of the earth. You will see that on each are inimitable signatures of the pre-eternal Sun. Just as the stamps on life and seals on living beings are apparent, and we saw one or two of them, so are there such signatures on giving of life. Since comparisons bring profound meanings closer to the understanding, we shall demonstrate this truth with a comparison. For example, from the planets to droplets of water, to fragments of glass and sparkling snowflakes, a signature from the sun's image and reflection, a luminous work particular to the sun is apparent. If you do not accept the tiny suns apparent in those innumerable things to be the manifestation of the sun's reflection, you have to accept the actual existence of a true natural sun in every droplet and fragment of glass facing the light, and in every transparent speck before it, thus descending to the depths of lunacy. In just the same way, there is such a signature on all living beings in regard to the giving of life from among the luminous manifestations of the pre-eternal Sun. that supposing all causes were gathered together and had the power to act and possessed will, they still could not imitate that signature. For living beings, all miracles of divine power are points of focus of the divine names, which are like the rays of the pre-eternal sun. If that strange inscription of art, that wondrous ordering of wisdom, that manifestation of the mystery of oneness on living beings is not ascribed to the single and eternally besought one, it necessitates accepting that concealed within each living creature, and even in a fly or flower, is an infinite creative power, a knowledge encompassing all things, an absolute will with which to govern the universe, and even the eternal attributes particular to the necessary existent one, thus falling to the most ludicrous degree of misguidance and superstition. Quite simply, it necessitates attributing divinity to each particle of the flower or fly. For example, a state has been given to those particles, especially if they are in seeds, whereby they look to the living being of which they are a part, and take up a position in accordance with its systems and ordering. The particle is even in a position to look to all members of the species to which its living being belongs, or to fly with wings in order to be planted in a place suitable to the continuation of its species, and to plant the species flag. In fact, it holds a position whereby that living being's transactions with all other beings may be continued, and its relations with them connected with sustenance, for it is in need of them. Thus, if that particle is not an official of a possessor of absolute power, and if its relation with him is severed, it has to be ascribed an eye which sees all things, and a consciousness which encompasses all things. In short, if the miniature suns and various colours in droplets of water and fragments of glass are not attributed to the sun's reflection and the manifestation of its reflection, one has to accept the existence of innumerable suns in place of the one sun. It necessitates accepting an utterly impossible superstition. In exactly the same way, if everything is not attributed to the absolutely powerful one, it necessitates accepting infinite gods instead of single Allah. Indeed, gods to the numbers of particles in existence, thus falling to the degree of accepting 100-fold impossibility. To sum up, from every particle, 3 windows open up onto the light of unity and necessary existence of the pre-eternal sun. First window. A soldier has a relation with each of the spheres of the military, that is, with his squad, his company, his battalion, his regiment, his division, and the army, and duties in accordance with those relations, and actions in accordance with the duties and army regulations. Particles have similar relations. For example, a lifeless particle in the pupil of your eye has relations with your eye, your head, your body, your powers of reproduction and attraction and repulsion, with your veins and arteries, and motor and sensory nerves, and with the rest of the human race, and it has duties in relation to each. This shows self-evidently to eyes that are not blind that it is the work of art and charged official of the pre-eternal and all-powerful one, and is under his regulation. Second window. All molecules of air may visit all flowers and fruits. They may also enter them and work within them. If they are not subjugated officials of an absolutely powerful one who sees and knows all things, those wandering molecules would have to know all the systems and structures of the fruits and flowers and their art, and the tailoring of all different forms which clothe them with its perfect and all-embracing art. Thus those particles all display as clearly as the sun the rays of light of divine unity. You may compare light with air and earth with water. In any event, the original sources of things are those 4 substances. According to modern science, they are hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen, the components of the former elements. Third window. You fill a flower pot with some earth, which is composed of particles and is the means of growth of any flowering or fruit-bearing plant. Then put some seeds in it. The same as the seed of animals does not differ, but is a fluid. The seeds of all the flowering and fruit-bearing plants in the world do not differ from one another, being composed of carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen and oxygen. They only differ by virtue of the program of their progenitors, deposited in them through the immaterial writing of the pen of divine determining. Thus, if we put these seeds, in turn, in the flower pot, we believe as though it has occurred that each plant will appear together with its wonderful forms and shapes and parts. If those particles are not officials under the orders of one who knows all the states and conditions of everything, is capable of giving everything a being suitable to it, and everything necessary for it, and to whose power everything is subjugated, with utter facility, every particle of the earth would then have to contain immaterial factories and printing presses to the number of all the flowering and fruit-bearing plants, so that it could be the source of all those various and different beings whose parts, members and forms are all distant and different from one another. It is otherwise necessary to attribute to all those beings comprehensive knowledge and a power capable of forming them, so that they could be the means of the above. That is to say, if the connection with Almighty Allah is severed, it becomes necessary to accept gods to the number of particles of earth, and this is an impossible superstition compounded 1,000 times over. However, when they are officials, it becomes extremely easy, just as in his king's name, and through his power, a common soldier of a mighty king can make a whole country migrate, or join two seas, or take another king prisoner. So at the command of the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, a fly did away with Nimrod, and an ant destroyed Pharaoh's palace, razing it to the ground, and a fig seed bears the load of a fig tree. Moreover, in all particles are two further truthful witnesses to the Maker's necessary existence in unity. One is that together with their absolute impotence, they all perform most important and various duties. The other is that, despite their lifelessness, they all conform to the universal order and systems, thus displaying a universal consciousness. That is to say, through the tongue of its impotence, each particle testifies to the necessary existence of the absolutely powerful one, and through its conforming to the order in the world, each testifies to his unity. Just as every particle testifies in two ways to his being the necessarily existent one of unity, so too on every living being there are two signs that he is the single and eternally besought one. Yes, on all living beings are a seal of divine oneness and a stamp of eternal besoughtedness, for each displays together in the mirror of its being most of the divine names, the manifestations of which are apparent in the universe. Quite simply, like a point of focus, each displays the manifestation of the greatest name of ever-living and self-subsistent one. Thus, since it shows a sort of shadow of the oneness of the divine essence under the veil of the name of Giver of Life, it bears a stamp of divine oneness. And since the living being is like a miniature sample of the universe and a fruit of the tree of creation, it shows a seal of divine, eternal besoughtedness, which conveys altogether with ease to the tiny sphere of its life its needs, which are as many as the universe. That is to say, this shows it has a sustainer whose regard and favour take the place of all things. Everything in existence cannot take the place of his regard. Furthermore, this situation shows that its sustainer is in need of nothing, nor does anything diminish his treasury, and nor is anything at all difficult for his power. This, then, is a sort of seal of eternal besoughtedness. Thus, on every living being are a seal of divine oneness and stamp of eternal besoughtedness. Yes, through the tongue of its life, every living being recites,
قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ.
Say, He is Allah, the One, the eternally besought. In addition to these two seals are several more important windows. But since they have been explained in detail in other places, our discussion here has been brief. seeing that each particle in existence at once opens up 3 windows and 2 openings onto the unity of the necessarily existent, and life too opens 2 doors, you can compare how all the levels of beings, from particles to the sun, spread the light of knowledge of the All-Glorious One. Thus you can understand from this the degrees of progress in knowledge of Allah and the levels of awareness of His presence.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. 7th flash. Look, with little difficulty you can see the seals of the single eternally besought one on the page of the earth. So raise your head, open your eyes, and look too at the great book of the universe. You will see that on it as a whole stamp of unity is read out, which is as clear as it is big. For like the components of a factory or members of a palace or town, these beings support one another, stretch out their hands to assist one another, and answer the needs and requests of one another, saying, "Here I am at your service." Assisting one another, they work together in order. Joining efforts, they serve animate beings. Cooperating and turned to a single goal, they obey an all-wise disposer. They conform to a rule of mutual assistance, which is in force from the sun and moon, night and day, and winter and summer, to plants coming to the assistance of hungry and needy animals, and animals hastening to the assistance of weak, noble men, and even nutritious substances flying to assist delicate, weak infants, and fruits and particles of food passing to the assistance of the cells of the body. They show to anyone who is not altogether blind that they are acting through the strength of a single most generous nurturer, and at the command of a single most wise disposer. Thus, on the one hand, this mutual support and assistance, this answering one another's needs, this mutual embracing, this subjugation, this order, testify decisively that beings are administered and organized by a single disposer and are being impelled and directed by a single nurturer. And on the other hand, this perfect grace within the universal wisdom to be seen plainly in the art of things, and the all-embracing mercy which shines within the providence, and the sustenance spread over that mercy and scattered so as to answer the needs of all living beings needy for sustenance. These form a stamp of divine unity so brilliant that anyone whose mind is not altogether extinguished will understand it, and anyone who is not altogether blind will see it. Yes, a veil of wisdom demonstrating intention, consciousness, and will has covered the whole universe, and upon that veil of wisdom has been spread a veil of grace and favour exhibiting beneficence, adornment, embellishment, and benevolence. And over that adorned veil of favour a garment of mercy displaying flashes of making known and loved, of bestowal and the granting of gifts, has enveloped the universe, and spread over that illuminated veil of universal mercy is a table of general provisions showing kindness and bestowal and benevolence and perfect compassion and fine nurturing and dominical favour. Yes, all beings, from particles to suns, whether individuals or species, or large or small, have been clothed in a magnificent shirt of wisdom embroidered with fruits and aims, benefits and purposes, and over the wisdom displaying shirt a garment of favour embroidered with flowers of grace and beneficence, has been cut out in accordance with the stature of things, and over that an ornamented garment of favour, a general table of sustenance has been set up, lit up with flashes of love, bestowal, affection, and granting of gifts, to which the decorations of mercy have been attached, and which, together with bestowing those illuminated and jewel-encrusted decorations, is sufficient for all the groups of living beings on the face of the earth, and meets all their needs. Thus, this matter points to an all-glorious provider who is all-wise, all-generous, and all-compassionate, and shows him as clearly as the sun. Is that so? Is everything in need of sustenance? Yes, like individual beings are in need of sustenance, and all the necessities to continue their lives. We see that all the beings in the world, and especially living beings, whether universal or particular, wholes or parts, have many desires and needs, material and otherwise, for their existence, their lives and the continuation of their lives. But their wants and needs are for such things that their hands cannot reach the least of them, and their power is insufficient for the smallest of them. Yet, we see that all their wishes and material and immaterial sustenance is given to them
min haythu la yahtasib,
from where he could not imagine, from unhoped-for places, with perfect order, at the appropriate time, in a suitable fashion, with perfect wisdom. And so, does this want and need of creatures, and this manner of unseen help and assistance, not show an all-wise and glorious nurturer, an all-compassionate, beauteous disposer? Eighth flash. Any sort of seed sown in a field shows that the field must be at the disposal of the seed's owner, and that the seed too is under the disposal of the one who has control of the field. Similarly, the arable field of beings known as the elements, and the universality and comprehensiveness, as well as their sameness and uncomplex nature, and the plants and animals, these fruits of mercy, miracles of power, and words of wisdom known as creatures, and their spreading to most places and settling everywhere, as well as their being similar and resembling one another, show that they are under the disposal of a single miracle-displaying Maker, and in such a way that it is as if every flower, fruit, and animal is a seal, stamp, and signature of its Maker. Wherever they are found, each says through the tongue of disposition, "Whosever seal I am, the place I am found is also of his making. Whosever stamp I am, this place is a missive of his. Whosever signature I am, this land too is of his weaving." That means to be sustainer of the least creature is particular to the one who holds all the elements in the grasp of his power. Anyone who is not blind can see that to regulate and govern the simplest animal is particular to the one who has all beings in the grasp of his dominicality. Indeed, through the tongue of similarity to other individuals, all individual beings say, "Only one who owns my species can be my owner. It cannot be otherwise." And through the tongue of spreading over the face of the earth, together with other species, each species says, "Only one who owns the whole face of the earth can be our owner. It cannot be otherwise." And through the tongue of being bound to the sun and other planets and mutually supportive with the skies, the earth says, "Only one who is owner of the whole universe can be my owner. It cannot be otherwise." Yes, supposing someone was to say to a conscious apple, "You are my work of art," through the tongue of disposition the apple would reply, "Be silent, if you are capable of fashioning all the other apples on the earth. Indeed, if you can have disposal over all my fellows, the other fruit-bearing trees spread over the earth, and all the gifts of the most merciful, proceeding from the treasury of mercy in boatloads, then you can claim to be my sustainer." The apple would say that and aim a slap at that foolish person. Ninth flash. We have pointed out some of the seals, stamps and signatures on particulars and parts, universals and wholes, on the world as a whole and on life, living beings and raising to life. Now we shall indicate one of the countless stamps on species. Since the countless fruits of a fruit-bearing tree are administered from one centre in accordance with one law and a single way of raising, the difficulty, hardship and expense are transformed into ease. It is so easy, the numerous fruits raised become equal to a single fruit. That means in regard to quantity, multiplicity, and numerous centres necessitate the difficulty, expense and equipment of the whole tree for a single fruit. The difference is only in regard to quality. Like all the factories required for the whole army are necessary to manufacture all the military equipment necessary for a single soldier, that is to say, if the matter passes from unity to multiplicity in respect of quantity, the difficulties increase to the number of individuals. Thus, the extraordinary ease to be seen clearly in all species is the result of the ease and facility arising from unity. In short, the conformity and similarity in basic members between all the individuals of a species and all the species of a genus prove that they are the works of a single maker, because the unity of the pen and oneness of the seal requires this. Similarly, the observable absolute ease and lack of difficulty require, indeed necessitate, that they are the works of one maker. Otherwise, difficulties rising to the degree of impossibility would doom the genus and the species to non-existence. To conclude, if all things are ascribed to Almighty Allah, they become as easy as a single thing, while if they are attributed to causes, they become as difficult as everything. Since it is thus, the extraordinary profusion observed in the universe and the boundless abundance before our eyes display a stamp of unity like the sun. If these fruits, which we obtain in such plenty, were not the property of the single one of unity, we would not have a single pomegranate to eat, even if we gave the whole world for it.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. 10th flash. Just as life, which displays a manifestation of divine beauty, is a proof of divine oneness, and a sort of manifestation of unity, death too, which displays the manifestation of divine glory, is a proof of divine unity. For example,
وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى,
and Allah's is the highest similitude. By showing the sun's light and reflection, the bubbles on a wide flowing river which sparkle in the sun, and transparent objects which glisten on the face of the earth, testify to the sun. On those tribes of bubbles and transparent objects disappearing, the continued magnificent manifestation of the sun, and the uninterrupted and constant display of its light on the successive groups and tribes of bubbles and transparent objects which follow on after them, testify decisively that the little images of the sun and lights and flashes which appear and sparkle, flare up and die away, and are changed and renewed, are the manifestations of an enduring, perpetual, elevated single sun, whose manifestation is undying. That is to say, just as through their appearance and becoming visible, the shining droplets demonstrate the sun's existence, so with their disappearance and extinction, they demonstrate its continuation, permanence and unity. In exactly the same way, through their existence and lives, these flowing beings testify to the necessary existent and oneness of the necessarily existent one. And with their deaths and disappearance, they testify to his pre-eternity, everlastingness and unity. Yes, the beautiful creatures and fine beings which are renewed and restored within the decline and disappearance that occur through the alternation of night and day, winter and summer, and the centuries and ages, surely point to the existence, continuance and unity of an elevated, eternal possessor of continually manifested beauty. While the deaths and disappearance of those beings, together with their apparent and lowly causes, demonstrate that the causes are nothing but a mere veil. This situation proves decisively that these arts, these inscriptions, these manifestations are the constantly renewed arts, the changing inscriptions, the moving mirrors of an all-beauteous one of glory, all of whose names are sacred and beautiful, that they are his seals which follow on one after the other, and his stamps that are changed with wisdom. In short, the mighty book of the universe both teaches us the creational signs concerning divine existence and unity, and it testifies to all the attributes of perfection, beauty and glory of that all-glorious one, and they prove the perfection of the divine essence faultlessly and without defect. For it is obvious that perfection in a work points to the perfection of the act which is the source and origin of the work, and the perfection of the act points to the perfection of the name, and the perfection of the name to the perfection of the attribute, and the perfection of the attribute to the perfection of the essential qualities, and the perfection of the qualities point necessarily and self-evidently to the perfection of the essence possessing those qualities. For example, the perfect inscriptions and adornments of a faultless palace indicate the perfection of the master builder's acts behind them, and the perfection of the acts shows the perfection of that active master's titles and names, which demonstrate his rank, and the perfection of the names and titles show the perfection of the other attributes qualifying the master builder's art, and the perfection of the art and attributes show the perfection of the qualities and essential capacity of that craftsman, which are called the essential qualities, and the perfection of those essential qualities and abilities show the perfection of the master's essential nature. In exactly the same way, the faultless works observed in the world, which manifest the meaning of
هل ترى من فطور?
Do you see any flaw? This art in the well-ordered beings of the universe point observantly to the perfect acts of an active possessor of power, and those perfect acts point clearly to the perfect names of a glorious agent, and that perfection necessarily points to and testifies to the perfect attributes of the beauteous one signified by the names. And certainly those perfect attributes point and testify to the perfection of the perfect one qualified by the attributes. And those perfect qualities point with such absolute certainty to the perfect essence of the one possessing the qualities that they indicate that all the sorts of perfection to be seen in the whole universe are but signs of his perfections, hints of his glory, and allusions to his beauty, and pale, weak shadows in relation to his perfection. The 11th flash, which has the strength of suns. As is defined in the 19th word, our Master Muhammad, the trustworthy, peace and blessings be upon him, is the supreme sign of the mighty book of the universe, and the greatest name of the mighty Qur'an, the seed of the tree of the universe, and its most luminous fruit, the sun of the palace of the world, and the radiant moon of the world of Islam, the herald of the sovereignty of divine dominicality, and the wise discloser of the talisman of the universe, who flies in the levels of reality with the wings of messengership, which take under their shade all the prophets, and the wings of Islam, which take under their protection all the world of Islam, who took behind him all the prophets and messengers, all the saints and veracious ones, all the purified and the scholars, and demonstrated divine unity with all his strength and opened up the way to divine oneness. Has any doubt or suspicion, then, the power to conceal or obscure the belief in Allah which he demonstrated, or the divine unity which he proved? Since in the 19th word and the 19th letter we have defined and described briefly and to a small degree in the 14 droplets and 19 signs from the water of life of that clear proofs knowledge, that miracle displaying being together with his various miracles, we shall here content ourselves with this indication and conclude with a benediction for him.
Allahümme salli ala men delle ala vücubu vücudike ve vahdaniyetike ve şehide ala evsafi celalike ve cemalike ve kemalike şahidus sadıkul musaddak vel burhanun natık el muhakkak seyyidül enbiya vel murselin el hamilu sirra icma'ihim ve tasdikihim ve mucizatihim ve imamül evliya ve sıddıkîn el havi sirra ittifakihim ve tahkikihim ve keramatihim zül mucizatil bahireti vel havarikız zahira ve delailil kâtı'atil muhakkaka el musaddakati lehu zül hısalil gâliyeti fi zâtihi ve vel ahlâkil âliyeti vel ahlâkil âliye fi vazifetihi ve secâyes sâmiyeti fi şeriatihil mükemmeletil münezzehe lehu anil hilafi mehbitul vahyir rabbaniyyi bi icma'il münzili vel münzeli vel münezzeli aleyhi seyyaru alemil gaybi vel melekut müşahidül ervahi ve musahibül melaiketi en müzecu kemalil kainati şahsen ve nev'an ve cinsen enverus semerati şeceratil hilka siracül hakkı burhanül hakikati timsalül rahmeti misalül muhabbeti keşşaf-ı tılsımıl kainat dellalu saltanat-ı rububiyetil mürmizu bi ulviyeti şahsiyetihil maneviyeti ila ennehu nusbe ayni fatırıl alemi fi halkıl kainat züş şeriatilleti hiye bi vüs'ati desatiriha ve kuvvetiha tüşiru ila enneha nizamun nazimil kevni ve vad'u halikil kainat. Naam enne nazimel kainati bihazen nizamil etemmil ekmel huve nazimu hazet dini bihazen nizamil ahsenil ecmel seyyidina nahnu me'aşira beni ademe ve mühdina ilel iman nahnu me'aşirel müminine Muhammed ibni Abdullah ibni Abdülmuttalib ala efdalus salavati ve etemmü't teslimati ma dametil ardu ve semavatu fe inne zâlike şâhides sadık el musaddak yeşhedü ala ruusil eşhadi münadiyen ve muallimen li ecyalil beşeri halfel a'sari vel aktari nidaen ulviyen bi cemii kuvvetihi ve bi gayeti ciddiyetihi ve bi nihayeti vüsukihi ve bi kuvveti itminanihi ve bi kemali imanihi bi eşhedü en la ilahe illallah vahdehu la şerike leh.
O Allah, grant blessings to the one who demonstrated your necessary existence and unity, and testified to your glory and beauty and perfection. The verified and veracious witness, the verifying articulate proof, the Lord of the prophets and messengers, the bearer of the mystery of their consensus, affirmation and miracles, the leader of the saints and veracious ones, the holder of the mystery of their accord, verifications and wonder-working, the one with evident miracles, clear marvels and decisive evidences which corroborated and affirmed him, who displayed exalted purity in his self, elevated morals in his duty, and lofty qualities in his sharia, perfect and free of all contradiction, to whom, according to the consensus of the revealed and the revealer, and the one who revealed it to him, dominical revelation descended, the traveller through the worlds of the unseen and of the inner dimensions of things, the observer of spirits, who conversed with the angels, the sample of the perfections of the universe, in regard to both individuals and species, and realms of beings, the most luminous of the fruits of the tree of creation, the lamp of truth, the proof of reality, the embodiment of mercy, the exemplification of love, the discloser of the talisman of the universe, the herald of the sovereignty of dominicality, the sign that the elevatedness of his collective personality was before the eyes of the world's creator at the creation of the universe, the possessor of a sharia that indicates through the breadth of its principles and strength that it is the order of the orderer of the world, drawn up by the creator of the universe. Yes, the one who ordered the universe with this perfect and total order is he who ordered this religion with its fine and beautiful order. Our Master, we are the community of the sons of Adam, our guide to belief. We are the community of believers. Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Abd al-Muttalib. Upon him be the most perfect blessings and most complete peace, as long as the heavens and earth subsist. For he is the veracious and verified witness, who summoned the leaders of witnesses and has instructed the branches of mankind throughout the centuries and all the regions of the world in elevated fashion, with all his strength, with complete seriousness and utter steadfastness, and with the power of his certainty and perfect belief, testifying, I testify that there is no God but Allah, the One. He has no partner.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, and on all his family and companions. The 12th flash, which has the strength of suns. This 12th flash of the 22nd word is such an ocean of truths that all the previous 22 words form only 22 drops of it, and it is a source of such lights that they form only 22 flashes of that sun. Yes, all the previous 22 words are flashes of the stars of the verses shining in the skies of the Qur'an. All are single droplets from the river of a verse flowing from the ocean of discernment, distinguishing truth and falsehood. Each is but one pearl from a single of its verses, all of which are chests of jewels in the sublime treasury of Allah's book. Thus the word of Allah, which is in small part defined in the 14th droplet of the 19th word, has been revealed from the greatest name, the sublime throne, and the manifestation of dominicality, and it repeatedly states, with all its strength, within a breadth and elevatedness that binds pre-eternity to post-eternity, and ties the ground to the divine throne, and with the certainty of all its verses,
La ilaha illahu.
there is no God but Allah. It calls the whole universe to witness and makes it testify. Yes, altogether the world hymns, there is no God but Allah. If you look at the Qur'an with the eyes of a sound heart, you will see that its 6 aspects are so brilliant and transparent that no darkness, no misguidance, no doubt or suspicion, no trickery could enter it or find a fissure through which to enter and violate its purity. For above it is the stamp of miraculousness, beneath it proof and evidence, behind it its point of support, pure dominical revelation, before it the unhappiness of this world and the next, on its right questioning the reason and ensuring its confirmation, on its left calling on the conscience to witness and securing its submission. Within it is self-evidently the pure guidance of the Most Merciful. Its outside observedly consists of the lights of belief, and its fruits, with all certainty the purified and veracious scholars and saints, who are adorned with all the human perfections and attainments. If you fasten your ear to the breast of the tongue of the unseen, you will hear from afar a most familiar and convincing, and an infinitely serious and elevated heavenly voice equipped with proof which repeats,
La ilaha illahu.
there is no God but Allah. It states this so certainly, it is at the degree of absolute certainty, and it illuminates you with a knowledge of certainty, resembling vision of certainty. In short, both Allah's most noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and the most decisive criterion of truth and falsehood were sons. One, the tongue of the manifest world, pointing with the fingers of Islam and messengership, and confirmed by all the prophets and purified ones, supported by 1,000 miracles, demonstrated this truth with all his strength. And the other, like the tongue of the world of the unseen, indicating with the fingers of right and guidance, under the confirmation of all the creational signs in the universe, within 40 aspects of miraculousness, demonstrates the same truth with all seriousness. Is that truth then not clearer than the sun and more brilliant than sunlight? O obdurate little man sunk in misguidance. Footnote: this is addressing someone who is trying to abolish the Qur'an. How can you oppose these sons with the lamp of your head, dimmer than a firefly? How can you show disdain for them? Are you trying to extinguish them by puffing? Pooh to your denying mind. How can you deny the words and claims which those 2 tongues of the manifest and unseen worlds speak in the name of the sustainer of all the worlds and owner of the universe, which they speak on his behalf? O you wretch, lower and more impotent than a fly, who are you that you attempt to give the lie to the universe's glorious owner? Conclusion. O friend, whose mind is alert and heart attentive, if you have understood this 22nd word from the beginning up to here, take the 12 flashes together in your hand, and finding a lamp of truth as powerful as 1,000 electric lamps, adhere to the below mentioned verses of the Qur'an. Mount the steed of divine assistance, ascend to the heavens of truth, rise to the throne of divine knowledge, declare,
أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك.
I testify that there is no God but you. You are one, you have no partner. And saying,
لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير.
I testify that there is no God but Allah. He is one. He has no partner. His is the dominion, and His is the praise. He gives life and gives death, and He is ever living and dies not. In His hand is all good, and He is powerful over all things. Proclaim His unity over the heads of all the beings in the universe in this mighty mosque of the world.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك جامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه إن الله لا يخلف الميعاد اللهم صل وسلم على من أرسلته رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وارحمنا وارحم أمته برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Glory be to you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. O our Sustainer, do not call us to task if we forget or fall into error. Our Sustainer, lay not a burden on us like that which you laid on those before us. Our Sustainer, lay not on us a burden greater than we have the strength to bear. Blot out our sins and grant us forgiveness. Have mercy on us. You are our protector. Help us against those who stand against faith. Our Sustainer, let not our hearts deviate now after you have guided us, but grant us mercy from your presence, for you are the granter of bounties without measure. Our Sustainer, you are He that will gather mankind together against a day about which there is no doubt. For Allah never fails in His promise. O Allah, grant blessings and peace to the one whom you sent us as a mercy to all the worlds, and to all his family and companions, and have mercy on us, and have mercy on his community. Through your mercy, O most merciful of the merciful. Amen. And the close of their prayer will be, Praise be to Allah, the Sustainer of all the worlds.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise.